Welcome to the Exchangors podcast,
covering the world of creative deal structuring,
financing,
value adds,
and income generation in real estate.
The Exchangors podcast with Dusty and Cary.
All right, just finished a great recording with Ron Bell here in Reno, an avid real estate investor. Great information that we just really learned from Ron.
Yeah, he's an investor out of this area, been in the game for a long time, realtor with Coldwell Banker Select, has had 19 houses built, has remodeled over 150 homes. So it was a good one. You know, we got into things like ghost mortgages. What the heck's a ghost mortgage? You're going to learn about that. Undercutting courthouse steps with the foreclosure process.
Also, one of the greatest stories in there is how he acquired a boat for just a couple condos and some cash. And then the last thing, near and dear to me is understanding a little bit more about wholesaling and how you can actually do it as a real estate agent and not get in trouble while you're doing it. Do it the right way. He has some great tips and strategies on that.
Ron Bell of Coldwell Banker Select, Reno, Nevada. Let's get into it. Exchangers podcast.
Welcome, Ron.
Thank you very much for having me, guys.
Absolutely. So, Ron, what we really love to get out of this show initially is just tell us how you got into real estate, man.
Well, it's a family thing. My grandfather actually started timeshares.
Started
timeshares.
Where does that start from? Was that West Coast,
East
Tahoe,
Coast? South Tahoe.
South
Lake Tahoe.
Okay.
Yeah, condo project there. And then my father got into timeshare. He didn't like the condo stuff, and he liked being outside like myself. So he got into timeshare dude ranches. So
as everybody should. Yeah.
I kind of grew half my time as a child, half in Incline Village, Nevada, and also half up on the timeshare dude ranches. And at 18 years old, I got my license and was selling timeshare dude ranches for my father and flipping homes. The first house I built was 18 years old.
Is your dad from the West Coast? Is he from out this way, your whole
Originally,
family?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But you born and raised, Tahoe born.
Not born in Sonoma,
Close enough.
but we moved to Tahoe when I was very young.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
So you were in the thick of it, timeshares, launched it off, and tell me about how that whole came to be.
Timeshares? It turned me into a salesman that I am today.
Yeah, I bet.
You sell timeshares, or even I tell new realtors, go work on a car lot for a year if you want to be a good realtor. So you always got to remember, if you're a realtor and even investing, at the end of the day, you're a salesperson.
Yeah.
And you got to close. You got to ask for the sell and ask for the business. And timeshares and selling cars, for that matter, will do that.
So you kind of knew from the beginning, with the family, and you were getting into real estate one way or the other. It was going timeshares, it was flipping houses or something. It was just the destiny was already kind of written for you.
Yeah, but I'm also, as you guys know, I'm also an entrepreneur, right? I do local startups here and apps and websites, and I've owned numerous businesses over the years, anywhere from house cleaning businesses to maintenance businesses to snowboard shops. Real estate's always been my day job, though, both as an investor, as a realtor. It really gives me a lot of freedom. And so, yes, real estate's my day job.
So you built your first house at 18 and sold that one?
I think it was sold by the time I was 19 years old. I'd already sold that. Of course, now keep in mind, in all fairness, this was back when you could buy a lot for, not to date myself, but I think I bought that thing for $18,000. And so it's...
and that was up at Tahoe area?
Up in Tahoe. And the joke back then
Lord.
was you're going to make $100,000 or lose $100,000. Now the joke in Tahoe is you're going to make $1 million or lose $1 million.
Along that whole line, you're one of those that have been through the 2008 and everything else that came to be through that. You made it through. You're still going strong. You were still located up in Tahoe during this time?
Yeah, I moved to Reno, it's been probably 14 years now.
Okay.
Until then, it's been Tahoe. And I lived in France for a while, too. It's important, by the way, let me mention that when you're in this business, you need to harvest your money every once in a while. So let's say, for example, I took a year off and lived in France because I knew a correction was coming. So it might have cost me $100,000 to live in France and not work and do all that stuff, but I would have lost that $100,000 in the market anyhow.
Yeah.
So anybody listening to this, you want to reap your rewards every once in a while. Don't be a slave to any job for that matter.
Yeah.
And real estate gives that flexibility.
Yeah.
I think that's very sage advice. Don't wait until you're old to travel. take advantage of what you made now and while you still have the time to do it.
I've been semi-retired since I've been 18 years old.
Even in the midst of that, though, one thing I appreciated about you, Ron, I know you from the local investors clubs. What I find interesting is that you've been involved with so many different facets of real estate. I didn't even know about the timeshare piece, but the flipping, the builders side as well. And would I be interested to know, because I want to go into a few different deals and specifically things that you've learned with those. I know that the one thing we were talking about, the ghost mortgage, something that we can get into here in a little bit. And these are new terms that we're, of course, coming across. And of course, Ron just threw this at us here a moment ago. But having seen so much of what's gone on here in the area, what's something that just recently you're starting to see that's a trend that is piquing your ears to ultimately a direction you want to go? Is there anything recently that's changed how you're engaging in what you're not engaging in?
Ooh, I'm not a negative person, but in a sense, for now, the train has almost left the station, because for a while there, it was great. We were buying these houses, 70, 80, 90,000. 6 months later, remodel or not remodel, they were worth 150. And then next thing you know, you'd buy the house across the street for 150. And then all of a sudden that became worth 200, 250, maybe put some carpet and paint in it. So right now with the market pretty pricey, oh boy, for the average person, I mean, obviously get your first house and then, hang on to that for a couple of years. Maybe you can sell it and get the capital gains exclusion or borrow some money from your uncle and get your first investment one. Really right now, it's good old fashioned, farming, sending out letters, looking for vacant homes, things like that. I mean, there was just over there in Old Southwest, long-term family actually started remodeling a vacant home and then went and got, I believe it was a quiet title. They actually got title to the freaking thing because it was an abandoned house. And I thought that was extraordinarily creative. And I've been meaning to get that attorney actually that represented them to the Investors Club one day. But again, that's not something that's trending.
Wait, let's back up on that. What do you mean by that? The quiet title?
Well, it was an abandoned home, so they just they couldn't find the owner, or the owner in this case was incapacitated, and in a rest home or whatever, and they ended up getting the title from the house. I thought that was incredible. So that was very interesting to happen in the town. And then also there's been the HOA liens, but one minute I heard those aren't happening, and then I heard they're happening again. So I don't know what's happened with HOA liens, but I can tell you one I recently did is this ghost mortgage. It was real simple. It was an old Washington Mutual loan. I think I paid $12,000 with the right to negotiate with the underlying note holder. And of course, the note couldn't be found. We traced it all the way back to Freddie Mac.
We're talking about the note. This is the financing for the property, and this is
what I'm doing right now as we speak.
Gotcha.
It's in escrow. I've been dealing with Freddie Mac actually all morning. I bought the property, I want to say, for $12,000, and it's not a huge thing, but I think we're selling it for $50,000-$60,000, something like that. They released the mortgage entirely down to zero because those were one of those old Washington Mutual Indy Max. So if you can find some of those.
But what do you mean that it's been reduced down to zero? As far as the debt to it?
Zero.
Yeah. Okay.
Zero. Yep.
So when you bought it for $12,000 from...
I got the seller to fill out a hardship letter. They got the note reduced to zero. I was the benefactor of any reduction in that note. With the agreement to the seller, this is very important, is he's going to have a tax consequence from that unforgiven debt. So I made a deal with him that I would, pay whatever his unforgiven debt was, and we were going to approximate that at close of escrow. A little complicated for the average bear, these things, by the way.
That's the nature of this show, though.
Yeah.
But when you say...
I'm doing that one right now as we speak.
The definition of the ghost mortgage...
That's my own term. I don't know if they're called that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
They might be called that. I might have heard that at one point.
Okay.
Yeah, but you're going to find with me, I name stuff, all kinds of stuff,
Oh, no, it's great. It's great.
But I think it is called ghost mortgages.
So ghost mortgage in its most pure form, what would that be?
I call a ghost mortgage one that the mortgage company is out of business. The notes are lost. They're spread all over Finland, Sweden, and everybody else back in the day.
Right.
I don't know if a great movie to watch is The Big Short, so this was back in the Big Short days where these mortgages were sliced and diced. You can't even find the note holder.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the way that you came across this was just interaction. You came across the seller, you had a conversation, and somehow discovered that they were looking to offload this property or figure something out, and then you did the due diligence up the chain to see whether there actually indeed were records of this mortgage, of the promissory.
Yeah, I was actually trolling tax sales. This guy was behind in payments. One thing as an investor in a market like this, when things are pretty pricey, I don't really want to use this term, but for lack of better terms, you kind of don't want to be looking for some blood in the water. Behind in taxes, of course, behind in the mortgages, little things like that.
There has to be some form of distress.
Something going on there. Get in bed with some divorce attorney. As an investor, that's one of the best things you can do is go to all the divorce attorneys and go, look, I can close quick. No drama, no nothing. We all know the top flippers in this town. I'm not going to name any names, but the reason they're the top flippers is because they can close quick. Those guys can close in 72 hours if they wanted. And, those guys are some damn nice guys, and they do what they say. And that's important in this business. Do what you say you're going to do and be a nice guy.
Right. Sure.
Always do the right thing. Follow the golden rule.
Sure. I think sometimes there's a bad rep for investors, like you said, looking for blood in the water, but someone is in some sort of hardship and you can come in with the solution. And if you can make that solution happen a lot faster, then obviously everyone's going to come out on the other end a little bit better. So elaborating more on this ghost mortgage. So when you were looking at these tax sales, then you just reached out to the seller or the homeowner directly and just started the conversation with them?
Yeah, you're always asking questions. And a lot of times after you do this long enough, you've got these questions in the back of your head. If you're a beginner, you want to kind of have these questions go. And you want to camouflage the questions. You don't want to be rapid fire like a detective. Like, hey, how's the weather? How's the kids, right?
What's your mortgage?
Right, exactly, yeah. In investing and as a realtor, you want to be a chameleon to your client. If I'm going out and meeting some guy on a piece of dirt and he's living in some places falling down, probably got my cowboy boots on and my camo hat and things like that, right?
Yeah.
If I'm going to walk into divorce attorneys, I'm probably going to be dressed like I am now with maybe some dockers and perhaps a tie. So you're a chameleon to your client. Always remember Ford, both in real estate as an investor, family, occupation, recreation, dreams. If you can soften them up with that, get them to really like you.
So the ghost mortgage thing, and then there was something else that I wanted to ask you about personally, just selfishly. So, I'm the one in here that doesn't have his license, and I do a lot of wholesaling. And I want to get my license, but a little nervous about the liability of wholesaling and, having your license. So you mentioned that you have some tactics to keep it legal. So I'd love to pick your brain a little bit on that one.
Yeah, and of course, any of these comments I'm making today don't reflect the views of Coldwell Banker.
Sure, of course.
Right? And this is not real estate advice. All right. So first of all, the difference between having a license and not having a license is, when you don't have a license, you swim with the sharks. Once you have a license, you're going to have to swim with the dolphins. Okay. So you're always being careful and all that. So the easiest way, in my opinion, this is just kind of my experience, is just a flat buyer's agent agreement. Go, look, I found you a house, Mr. Investor, Mr. Wholesaler. You're going to pay me X amount at close. I'm going to run it through the office. I'm going to pay taxes on it. It's all black and white. And then if it's a really, really smoking good deal, I also try to get a listing agreement to also pick up the commission on the sell side. So I'm making it on the buy side as a buyer's agent agreement, and I'm making it on the sell side as a listing agreement. The other way is if let's say Cary I found him a deal, I would just might have him just pay me a referral, an office-to-office referral. And those are pretty good for licensed folks. I just did one of those not too long ago. And then I'll also try to get a referral on that listing side. So say if he's going to sell it, I'm going, hey, I want a referral back on that listing side. So just a simple referral. And all those things are great because there's no stress, you're not involved with anything, not a lot of liability.
On the referral side, what would be the things that would indicate to you that it would make a better opportunity to refer it out as opposed to listing it yourself? Why would you refer that out to another agent if it was local?
That's a great question. It brings up something very important if you have a license and very important for you. When I go into a property, I wear my realtor hat first, okay? And I go, this is what I can get you this is important if you're licensed. This is what I can get you as a realtor. Might take a while. Looks like you got a lot of repairs you might have to do before you go FHA or VA or something like that. Do you want to go that route? Can you wait 2, 3, 4, 5 months, right? And are you willing to make those kind of repairs and I can sell your house for retail? Or here's what I can offer you as an investor. Now, folks, I'm wearing my investor hat. What would you like to do?
Yeah.
So I do that for both in fairness to them and also liability. So it's going to be relative to what the seller wants.
Yeah.
Obviously, if it's a flip and they want out quick, I'll buy it as an investor. If they want top dollar, we'll sell it as a realtor. And there's been other times I've turned around and taken it out of MLS and bought it myself.
Yeah. Okay.
Many times.
But under what condition would you bring another realtor in and refer it out to that other realtor? Because that you're
The condition of my checkbook, whether I can buy it or not.
Oh, okay. I got you.
I mean, that's
So,
exactly what I just did.
First and
on
foremost,
one.
you're looking to buy it. As an investor, that's the opportunity you're looking for, is to purchase it if they don't want to go retail.
Or would you say that that's secondary? What would be?
Oh, that's a great question. Again, that depends what my tax situation is for that year. People need to know, when you flip and you make this short-term capital gains, you got a silent partner. And it's called the IRS.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of times I'm better off making my 3 to 4, 5, 6% than I am. Let's say I made that 6% as a flip. Well, now I got short-term capital gains versus my ordinary income. Right?
Yeah.
Sure.
So a lot of times it's just a math equation in my head. Do I want to take a capital gains hit? How high do I want to make my tax returns? You got to remember, as an investor, the banks like to see you pay taxes. So, for example, right now I'm getting ready. One of the reasons I haven't built on this one particular lot is I got to pay the man to make it look like I'm making money to the bank, right? So I'm probably going to do more flips and have that capital gains and,
To show
and
the
pay those
income.
taxes. So so that's kind of the big rub with this stuff. Unless you're doing owner financing, is you have to pay the man to get the loans.
Going into that, I guess my takeaway is what's going to be best for that seller. Like, look, we can list it. How much time do you have? Do you have money for repairs? This is exactly what you can get for, or we can move a lot quicker. So I think the takeaway there is do what's best for the client, the seller, and then it's going to work out at the end of the day as long as you have their best interest in mind.
That's exactly right. And again, the best interest, not to seem like you're going to take advantage of them. When you have a license, you always have this echo in the back of your head, your honor. This is what I meant to do, right?
Yeah.
And if you always have that, always think of the Miranda warning. Anything you say can be used against you in court, once you have that license. It's a whole different ballgame once you get that license. And that's why I like being a realtor. There's a high ethical standard, and the company you work for and the company I work for, very good companies, very high ethics. There's two types of investors. As you know, you guys go to the Exchange Club. Those guys are investing in Arizona, and you hear all kinds of stuff, Texas, whatever, I'm a little bit lazy in that respect. I kind of like to keep it around the Reno, Tahoe area. Used to do a lot of stuff in Auburn until I got tired of paying the California taxes. I will say one thing. Once you cross that border, you got another partner in your flips, and that's the California tax board, right? So to make money in California is a lot harder, So I've done some stuff out of town, but really I'm not a big hop on the airplane and go fix the hot water heater kind of guy. I know there's a lot of guys that do that. There's nothing wrong with it. I think if you're going to do something like that, you might want to just get involved with a REIT or a limited partnership or something,
I remember you had mentioned at one point about the history that you have back on the courthouse steps as well, and some different things that you've done. What are some strategies that you've done that were from the creative side that you have performed on the courthouse steps? And if you wouldn't mind, what specifically is happening on the courthouse steps for those that are unaware, that haven't really embraced that whole listing stream as well?
I have 2 different videos actually on my YouTube channel, Ron Bell Realtor, and just type in courthouse steps. And one of them is actually a real live bid across the street, of course, because you can't film. But I'm telling them what's going on. I go, here's the people bidding and da-da-da. So one is filmed across the street, and I explain it. The other one is actually just in my office. And I kind of walk them through cradle to grave, because there is a lot of stuff involved with buying at the courthouse strips, extreme risk. The one that people find creative, and I haven't done this in years, but I did back in the day when the interest rates were very, very high. And so people had to owner finance in order to sell their house. So it was easy pickings. But if you can still find an owner finance house, just like I just did with this one I explained earlier, but it was an institutional loan, you can make an agreement with the seller. Sometimes I'll give them full price and go, listen, I want to negotiate with the underlying note holders. And that's going to be your profit. So if you get the underlying note holder to discount 10, 20, 30%, there's your baked in profit.
Gotcha. So you're acting as a consultant for them and at the same time acquiring the property in the meantime. So you're helping them get out of the property, negotiating directly with the note holder, and then they can just slip right out.
Right.
From
And that's in the
underneath.
case of owner finance, right? Now, if you're going to do kind of what they used to call me Robin Hood down here at Washoe County, and frankly, they didn't like me because I would go to sellers that were in foreclosure. You can still do this to this day. It's a brilliant strategy. I don't know if anybody even does this.
They will after hearing
Yeah,
this.
I don't care. I mean, go ahead. If you can save the people.
Yeah.
So I would actually go. They'd be in default, and typically they're anywhere from say $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 on up to $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, depending on the house. So I would actually pony up that money. I'd tell them, look, I'm gonna pay your mortgage off, right? And I want you to sign over title, and I'm going to give you a lease option back, or an option if they're not in the property, and you got 6 months to pay me back. And now that's been as short as 3 months. It's been as long as 2 years. That's subjective. And well, guess what they never do? They never pay me back, right? They wait until 9:30 the day of the sale at 10 o'clock. And you're running around trying to get the cashier's check, and you're racing down there, running red lights and everything, and you go running up there just about the time the gavel hits, right?
Gotcha.
And that's the nature of almost all foreclosure. People are in denial. I don't know if you ever noticed that when they're in foreclosure, so they'll wait till last minute.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the Robin Hood strategy, if that makes sense.
So
No,
you're paying off the past due balance
Correct.
before it's actually sold at the courthouse step. So it's
Right.
about to be foreclosed on. Last 1 minute left, and Ron's coming in there with the check to get the house, keep the homeowner in there give him an extra chance to actually stay in the house.
I've probably done about 24 of those, and I can maybe remember one where the guy did it in less than 24 or more than 24 hours. They were all either the night before at 5 o'clock or 6 or the evening, whatever, or that morning. And many I missed for that exact reason because they're in denial right till the very end.
Right.
It's unbelievable.
Well, with that in mind, then, how do you structure it if it is under such a tight timeline? They're not sure if you're actually going to pull the trigger from your side, all that you say you're going to do with the lease option coming back and such. Do you already have some of these documents ready to go to where you just fill in their name if need be and term it out
Absolutely.
in
Absolutely.
3 minutes type
Yep.
thing? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So what are some components on that? I mean, obviously a typical lease option, that's another subject that we'll get into, and we can upload some documents on that as well for show notes. But in such a situation, they call you, they say literally the night before or whatever it is, tomorrow this is going on the auction block. Can you still help me? At that point, have you gone a title at this point already to handle the transfer of title and everything to you before going to the courthouse? Or what's the steps
That's a
there?
great question. And it's important to know that any time you do something like this, it's going to be hard to get title insurance. If you've ever done a quick claim transaction, and it's getting harder all the time. So a lot of times the title company won't touch these things for 6, 8, 9 months, depending on the title company.
Yeah.
Some of the smaller title companies in town might do a little shorter time frame, because what happens anytime even with family members, you see this, anytime you break the chain of title insurance, the title companies hate that, right? Let's say you and I were brothers and sisters. I'm like, hey, Cary, I'm just going to deed off my property, right?
Yeah.
You go to sell it a year later, and the title company is going to go, whoops, you guys broke the chain of title insurance. So yeah, anytime you're doing stuff like quick claiming, and whether it's between relatives or investors, title company's not going to like it, and they're going to have a seasoning period, and it's going to be relative to the title company. Usually it's what I've experienced. It used to be shorter, but now it's about 6 months. Because that whole 6 months, they got to start pulling stuff and doing research. You're going to need a good title insurance company to do that.
So for those that haven't been through the process, what would be, for whatever you do there on site that particular day, when they give you the phone call and they say, I will work with you if you can make this happen. Step number 1, you go into the bank. Step number 2 is the document that you're bringing to the table and filling out their details. Is that sufficient for transferring title to you, and then then you can set up your lease option with them to purchase it at a later date? Or what are the steps that someone would need to do there?
Okay, so that's just a standard. I always try to keep things within the forms, whether it's a Department of Real Estate approved form or so I always try to keep the DRE forms are the best and the local boards are the best. So that at that point is just going to be a standard real estate purchase contract, right? but we're going to expedite it with the quitclaim deed because I don't have time to do title, right? So the purchase contract could have been done, 2 days before, whatever. But a lot of times that morning, yes, I'll have to march them down in front of a notary and get it, quitclaimed off and things like that. And then at that point, I'm going to give them either an option back if they don't live or a lease option if they live there. I'll caution you that it's going to be hard to get them out sometimes if you give them the lease option.
So your check then that you're writing, it's going to their mortgage company.
Correct. I'm reinstating.
And you're
for
not
them.
going through title to do that. You're just shipping it straight to the mortgage company.
Now, when I first did that, I did it the other way, and you can still do this. I got a lease option to buy from them. Like, hey, I'll pay you up. You give me an option back, right?
But they still have title.
They still have title, and a lot of times there wouldn't be time to record the option and things like that. And I got burned a couple of times. Now, it's important when you do any kind of option, lease option or just an option, that when you're on the buy side, you record a memorandum of option, right? So they can't sell it out from underneath you, right?
Yep.
And a lot of times, if it's a quick moving deal, there's not time to do that. So I kind of learned over time, no, give them the option back. But not that you couldn't be the optionee.
Sure.
You know?
The biggest thing is making sure they're caught back up with the mortgage company so it's not sold at the courthouse steps.
Yeah. And honestly, I feel better if they pay. Nobody's ever paid me back. I wish one day they would.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It would make me feel better, but I it helped a lot of people out doing that,
So walk me through that part real quick. So 6 months comes along, they're not able to refinance, they're not able to do whatever to actually pay you back. Then you start a standard foreclosure process, or is it sort of like an eviction process?
Right. Yeah. I've had to evict them, unfortunately. Almost always, though, cash for keys, just bribe them.
Sure.
That's pretty much how you almost get anybody out these days,
You finding anything more effective than cash these days? At least local market?
I mean, to get a tenant out or something?
Yeah. We don't need to go into that one.
Yeah. I mean, I don't, a car or something. I don't know, but no, cash is king,
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, another thing with cash for keys is, to answer that question, yes, I've actually had houses waiting for them to move into.
Really?
Oh,
Go
interesting.
look, yeah, I've got a house all ready to go. Just give me the word and I'll cut the check for first and last. I'll help you move. Absolutely.
And these are-
I've moved people out numerous times.
And these are into rentals, is what you're
Moving right
referring to?
into rentals.
Okay, and these would be your own rentals or your enemy's rentals?
I would not put them in one of my, no. Maybe
You already had that
you just go out
experience.
and find them a rental.
Sure.
You go out and find them a rental. And so part of the cash for keys is paying the first and last deposit.
You got
And
the
then give them
U-Haul
some running
ready to
money.
go too.
Typically, cash for keys is going to be $3,000 to $5,000.
Sure.
So that should be plenty of money to get first and last and give them $1,000, $2,000 running money.
Interesting.
You don't want to leave them out on the street.
No.
But look, they would have been out on the street 6 months before that,
Yeah.
is how I look at it. Many times those people lived scot-free, and I paid the mortgage the whole time. So it's not a bad deal for them.
So during that time when they're in their lease option, are they paying you anything at all, or is it usually they're...
Like I just said, many times they end up
but
not
nothing,
paying.
period.
A lot of times you just go, well, the hell with this, we're not paying. Sometimes,
Sure.
sometimes this kind of stuff can be a thankless job, and you'll see that these people, you try to be a nice guy, but sometimes they can be ruthless,
Sure.
Not always.
Part of the game.
Yeah.
How does one get in touch with the note holder, especially with a lot of these folks that probably aren't all that diligent with keeping records and filing away mortgage statements and things along that line? How have you found it best to be able to go after note holders and discover?
That's gotten a lot harder, I mean, you call these places, you get a hold of somebody from India or something like that. So, we're kind of talking a little bit about two different things. So let's just close out the Robin Hood scenario, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't need to get a hold of the note holder. You only just need to know what it cost, right?
Sure.
And that's just, you can get that online or whatever, and you give that to the crier, right?
Yep.
And so that's if it's the last minute. Before that, of course, you can wire the money in or something like that. But that's pretty easy, right? So if we go back to the ghost mortgage thing, that is good old-fashioned detective work. You're going to have to follow a trail of breadcrumbs, see who ended up with the note. Usually it's Freddie or Fannie or somebody. Freddie Mac almost has all of these old loans from back in the day where these companies went broke. So that would be your first spot. And then you do that by a combination of loan number and or the address. And you just ask them if they own that note.
Gotcha. So you're just going down the list and saying, do you own the note for X? Next on the list, do you own the note? Okay.
Correct.
What's the percentage you think that of these notes are out there like that? Let's just say in our local market, how many houses potentially could have a ghost mortgage?
This is what people don't realize. There are so many people still to this day living for free since the Great Recession from these banks that went belly up. And probably many are going to listen to this thinking, oh man, this guy's on to me. I've got clients that live in $1 million, $2 million homes. Haven't made a mortgage payment since 2008, 9, 10.
Wow.
And they also own 3 or 4 rentals. And they don't have to make a single payment. Those mortgages are gone. And there's a lot of people, the statistics used to be off the roof. For a while, there were 5,700 people living for free in Washoe County not paying mortgages. And that was as little as 6-7 years ago. I don't know what it is now.
Wow.
How do they determine that? Is it just off the property taxes that are also not being paid?
Yeah. You're going to look for old Washington Mutual loans, old Indy Max, all those ones that went belly up. Like I say, watch that Big Short and you kind of get an idea of how those loans were sliced and diced.
So you come across those, you're just scraping data basically through the county records?
Yeah, you could right now just call up Garrett at First Centennial or anybody that's a good title research officer and go, hey, give me all the Washington Mutual mortgages that are over, 2020, that are over 8 years old, for example, right? Mm-hmm. And you probably might find something. You might very well find that these guys haven't made any payments because they're gone.
They're gone.
The company's out of business.
Yeah.
Even I've tried. How I started doing this is I tried to short sell a few of these. I'm like, wait a second here. I can't even get a hold of these people, right? So you can't even pay them off, even if you wanted to. Notes are gone.
Now, is the reason that someone would want to even, because I would imagine if they're renting a place, they're saving a ton of money. They're very happy right now. Is the reason that they'd want to get out of this property just the fact that they can't sell it because there's no record back to satisfying the original note?
Yeah, if you're doing that, these people aren't just going to walk for $1,000 or $2,000. You're going to have to give them a chunk of change. Like I say, this one I'm doing right now, I think I gave the guy $12,000 or something, right? Mm-hmm. And then I'm also going to pay his his forgiven debt taxes, right? Because the IRS is going to tax you on any debt that's forgiven, right?
So the mortgages are gone, but the IRS is going to figure out that there's debt
that's going to go back upon the mortgagee, right? Yeah.
Sure.
And what you don't want to do is, have that person get burned,
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise, you might get in trouble. Like I say, you want to play fair in this game.
Yeah.
Because otherwise that kind of stuff can haunt you.
Yeah.
You could get a call from an attorney like, hey, you took advantage of this guy. Now he's got all this debt.
Yeah. Again, do right by the client, and you're gonna go far. In real estate, especially in this town, right? It's a small world. It's a small network, and word will get out if you're not doing the right thing.
Yeah, everybody seems to know me for whatever reason, so I don't want any trouble. I don't. Like I said, I just follow the golden rule.
I like it.
Yeah.
I want to talk about one thing, something about a boat in Sausalito.
Okay, what do you want to know about that boat?
All good stories start with a boat in Sausalito.
I thought I was going to learn something from you guys.
yeah, maybe later. So the way I understand it is there's a boat in Sausalito that you got with a couple properties, and somehow put that deal together. That's the real Exchanger stuff right there.
Okay, the boat in Sausalito. Did I tell you I also lost that boat? Did I tell you this?
I didn't know.
Let's go
this
there.
one comes full circle. Now, it's important to know that as an investor, especially start young, I've lost everything minimum 3 times in my life, including back in 2010.
Okay.
Every time I got back on the horse. And part of it is positive thinking, right? So you always want to have this glass half full mentality. So the story I'm about to tell you is from being a positive person and kind of picking myself back up because I was wiped out. This was the worst. I was 23 years old, 21, whatever. Very young guy at the time. So speaking of spec houses, I think I've built 2 or 3 spec houses by then. And so I had some cash and I gave $60,000 cash. the equity in a condo in Incline Village, and the equity in a condo in South Lake Tahoe on the water. And for this large 42-foot sailboat, and I was going to sail around the world, right? And windsurf and surf and all this cool stuff, right? That's the mechanics of the trade, if that's what you want to know about. Okay.
That's a hell of a dream right there. I like that.
And so I did that exchange, and it was wonderful. I exited out and was going to take some time off. Now, I can tell you how I lost that, and it's a lesson in real estate and in personal property, if you want to hear that.
Yeah, I want to unpack it a little bit.
I'm just interested to know, just before we get to that, what were the motivations of the seller of the boat? Why was that particular person interested in assuming, yes, cash, that's an obvious one, but equity in your properties up in Tahoe? Like, what were their motivations that they were trying to do on their side that made that a good fit?
Oh, great question. So if you were to talk to some of the old timers at the Exchange Club, they would tell you there was a golden era of exchanges. And it was back when interest rates were higher and things like that, right? And it took longer to sell property. You don't see a lot of equity exchanges in a market like this because why do you need to, right? Mm-hmm. Unless it's some, old salt plant or something, right? And so there was an era there where you could do all kinds of equity for equity exchanges because that's the only way you could sell property. Mm. So this was something that was a vehicle for him to buy these condos. So he wanted me to finance, and I'm like, no, I'm not too comfortable with it. And that's another thing. If anybody ever asks you to finance, or even they come hit you up for a loan, go, well, what kind of assets you have? So I start digging around like, well, hey, what kind of assets you have? And they go, well, I happen to have this sailboat. The only asset I have. I'm like, sailboat? so then I got the sailboat rather than carry paper, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right?
And you gave them equity, so you still owned a percentage of those condos?
No, I sold those. So I gave him the equity in those condos. I think there's about $30,000 each equity there, and simple math, and $60,000 cash. The boat was about $125,000, all totally equipped to go around the world. It was just gorgeous. Yeah.
So I'm on the right page. So when you say you exchanged the equity that was a second note that you put on the deed. How did they acquire?
Real simple. Let's say again, simple math. I sold it for $130,000. I owed $100, right? And actually back then was the subject 2 days. I actually let him keep the loan in my name. And okay. Yes, that was back in the subject 2 days because interest rates were so high. And that's not a bad thing either, leave loans subject to, but that's another discussion. So I harvested about $30,000 from each condo. So I used that equity. He ended up with the two condos, of course, right? Okay. And then I gave him another $60 cash.
Yep.
And I bought the sailboat.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not fun for the tax accountant. You start mixing
that was going to be my next question. How does that all work for taxes? That's got to be a nightmare.
Back in the days before paperless tax returns, my tax returns used to be 3, 4, 5 inches thick, two-sided.
Glad we're not in that world.
Yeah.
So you acquire this boat, and what would you do with it? What happened?
Well, I was going down there, working on it, getting ready to sell around the world, and working 2 jobs, selling real estate by day, building houses by day, waiting tables, working like a dog and getting ready to sell around the world. And so I'd go down there and work on it. And one day I went down there, and it was actually my second date with this girl. And, we had a coffee date before that. And so she didn't really know me that well. I go down there and the boat's gone. And I'm like, what the heck? And I go to the harbor master and I'm going, hey, where's my boat? And I'm not going to name the name, but they go, well, Mrs. So-and-so took it. And I'm like, what? And so I'm like, certainly something's some mistake. Call her up. I get voicemail. Call the husband up. I get voicemail. I'm like, what the heck's going on, right? So it was like a Craigslist scam before there was even Craigslist. So they had sold this to me and sold it to somebody else before me, and then turned around again, sold it to somebody else because this was what was called a federally documented boat, and it takes a month for the paperwork to go through. So they were playing that month interim, right? And so, boat was gone. The chick looks at me like, who is this weirdo? She wanted to go back to Tahoe, which I took her. She thought, I made the whole story up.
Yeah.
And I fought those guys for 4 years, and I got a piece of paper that says that in the meantime, the guy went bankrupt. I got a piece of paper that says he owes me $140,000, and we never could get specific performance. In other words, I never could get the boat. Now, this is very important lesson to learn. You can only get specific performance on real property. That is which is immovable. And I told the 3 attorneys, I go, you sure we can get specific performance? No, we'll get you that boat back, kid, right? $60,000 in attorney fees later, the judge, we went to arbitration and said, no, I can't give you specific performance because it's not real property. And I look at these 3 attorneys, the top attorneys in San Francisco, even a maritime attorney, $340 an hour even back then. And I look at this is what I told you guys 3 years ago. So,
wow.
Look, you get some bruises in this. Investing's not, you don't always make money, and you have to be prepared for that.
Yeah.
But I brushed myself off and kept doing it, right? Yeah.
Quite a lesson learned, though, for sure. That's incredible. Those people sold the boat 3 times in 1 month.
Real estate really is, and that's what I like. I learn every single day. You learn something every day in this business, whether you're a realtor or an investor. There's so many pieces to the puzzle. It's just amazing.
Well, it's a pleasure having you on board today and coming on through and talking about some of your stories. I know that you have many, many, many more stories to talk about, the things that we get to enjoy at different meetings around here in this area, but it's just scratching the surface. And one thing I definitely want to make sure, I know you're very active in your YouTube channel, you're doing some podcasting, you have a number of different things going on, of course, the local meetings in this area. How do people get in touch with you? If they want to see some of your content, learn from you, what's the best way to get in touch?
Really just Google Ron Bell, and I pretty much own that first page, except for one funny story. One DUI attorney, Ron Bell in Albuquerque, famous DUI attorney, he actually got busted for DUI himself. How ironic. So I share first page results with this Ron Bell attorney, which is not me, folks, but just Ron Bell Reno. I'll pop right up. I'm all over YouTube, everything. Maybe not as much as I used to be with Instagram and all that stuff, I appreciate, by the way, you guys having a passion for helping people. This is wonderful because that's my passion also, is helping people.
Yeah.
That's why I run the Investors Club and sponsor at Million Cups, taught many times at UNR, social media and internet branding and real estate courses at TMCC and stuff. I like helping people, and I appreciate the fact that you guys like helping people.
Well, thank you so much,
Yeah,
Ron.
thank you. Yeah, definitely appreciate you being on here. I'm sure we'll have some more discussions moving forward. A lot more that we can learn from you. Absolutely.
Yeah, geez, thanks, you guys. I'm blushing.
Well, thank you, Ron. Take care, and we'll catch you on the next one.
All right, bye-bye.
Disclaimer. The information expressed in this podcast are for education and general information purposes only and do not constitute accounting, legal, tax, or other professional advice. Listeners should not act upon the content of this information found here without first seeking appropriate advice from an accountant, financial planner, lawyer, or other qualified professional. The opinions expressed may or may not be shared by the production team, guests, or advertisers. As always, cheers to your success in all of your money generation endeavors.